Now we got to talk about discipline, because discipline and raising your standard go hand in hand. Yeah, man, discipline is key. Discipline, any person that you see that has reached a certain level of advancement, success, you know who this person is, right? It's going to go back to their discipline. It's going to go back to their discipline. Discipline beats talent and even smarts. You might be the most intelligent person in the world, but if you're not disciplined, you might be the most talented person in the world, but if you're not disciplined, that person that's willing to outwork you, right, is going to advance ahead. And the one who was ultimately behind the advancement clearly is Yah, but the one who architects the advancement is you, and that's where discipline comes into play. People don't understand that discipline is the highest form of self-love, right? It's self-love because what you're doing when you're disciplining yourself is really you're investing in yourself. It's the same way that you would look at finances, right? It's the same way, because think about it. Discipline, you got to think of discipline as a type of currency, if you will. And when you want to, when you want to gain success financially, it requires investment. Well, that principle is actually taken from the investment of what people do to discipline themselves in specific areas of, I would say, occupation. I guess that's a good, way to look at it. But, you're architecting your being moving forward, right? So the getting up at a certain time, right? The consistency of continuing to do something day in and day out without making excuses, especially when you don't feel like it. That would fall under the category of self-love, because what you're doing is you're spending time and energy in areas that your flesh wants to spend elsewhere. No, you're taking it back and you're turning your head. Matter of fact, Hebraically, the word for discipline, I've taught before that one of the words for discipline is tamid, right? Which will go back to the idea of talmudim, disciple, one who's a student of a teacher, one who follows the teaching of a master. But in this scenario, I want to focus on the word discipline being rooted in the Hebrew word musar, right? Mem, wa, samek, resh. And it's going to take you back to the root, sar, samek, resh, the turning of the head. So when you're disciplining yourself, you are turning your head away from where your flesh, your emotions, how you feel in the moment, all of that, you turning it back to the main goal. Hallelujah. This is going to bless somebody, right? And so how do you relate that term musar or sar, the turning of the head, to architecture? Because what you're doing is you are building a pattern of how your brain, your mind operates. And you are ultimately, like I said, developing a pattern that remains consistent. And at a certain point, it's going to be on autopilot. And that's where the growth comes in. That's where the building of the structure of everything else you do in life, that same turning of the head principle will eventually apply. And then you eventually will begin to see results. But it is tedious, right? And that's why most people don't succeed in certain things that they decide to put their hands to, because they give up at a certain point. They don't continue pressing. They feel a certain type of way and they let up off the gas. And that's when things begin to, stagger, right? They get comfortable. That's what I'm looking for. They get comfortable. And I'm going to just be real. All discomfort is not necessarily functional. but functional, purposeful discomfort that is a result of you turning your head, turning your mindset in a time period where you are being challenged, right? These things are they cause discomfort to your flesh. And that's ultimately what Yah has a problem with. He's not against your comfort. He's against your complacency. He's against your stagnation. And so, yeah, Abba Yahuah will allow you to be in a discomfort situation, an uncomfortable situation. Why? To turn your head, to program you to turn your head. Yah always doesn't want to necessarily be the one to have to turn your head. He wants you to be responsible enough, right? He wants you to have the initiative Ruach, right? Shout out Ahava Ezra Sarah. He wants you to take initiative over your own head. That's what discipline is. And it translates to every other form of your being, which would go back to your spirit, which will go back to your body, which will go back to your emotional regulated state, being able to turn your head in a particular direction. And how is this self-love? It's self-love because the end result is going to benefit you. It's going to benefit in whatever you're doing, because whatever you're doing is going to be blessed based off of the patterns that you established, right? This word in the English is really the idea of a paradigm, right? And so I just wanted to drop that in your Ruach. We cannot talk about raising standards, right? Raising standards for yourselves and those around you if you don't develop the proper discipline that you need. Let me tell you something. You are competing with yourself every single day. You're competing against your flesh. You're competing against your emotions and the things that you feel that stand in the way of your divine purpose and your divine calling. So again, this idea of discipline, man, is so key to, and I want to make this distinction too. When I say self-love, it's not the idea of pampering, right? It's not the idea of pampering yourself. It's the idea of you investing in yourself. You investing time, you investing energy, right? With the things you put in your body, the things you put in your mind, the things you put in your spirit, the things you turn over in your mind, the things you turn over in your spirit, the things that you focus on, the conversations that you have, where you allow your energy and your attention to go towards all throughout the day, from when you first arise in the morning to when you lay your head down at night. How are you accountable for your time? I'm telling you, all of these things fall under the category of self-discipline, right? Disciplining yourself, right? We a lot of us, when we think of discipline, we think of disciplining Yeladim, children, right? But what type of discipline do you have over yourself when you feel a type of way, when you're wrong? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having feelings, but there is a lot wrong with always being led and controlled and governed by your feelings. There's absolutely something wrong with that. That's going to stand in the way of your discipline. There will always be an excuse. There will always be a reason why whatever is supposed to get done does not get done. And that's a lack of discipline. And that's what Yahuah has a problem with when it comes to the lack of discipline in his people. And I know I quoted this verse yesterday, but it still applies, even though it's a different word being used in the actual verse, but it is the same principle. The hand of the diligent bears rule. Well, guess what? Guess what that word rule goes back to? Sar. The hand of the diligent is able to excel because of the sar, because of the turning, one's ability to turn one's own head in the right direction. Why? Because Yahuah already gave you the direction, right? So this is just a little bit of food for thought. I wanted to stay in this vein, hallelujah, because this is obviously something Yahuah has been dealing with me with regarding discipline and working and having that ethic. You know, I know, yeah, man, there's a lot of accounts in my life where Abba Yahuah blessed me and he rewarded my diligence because of, you know, just the work that I put in, right? Because you can't talk about faith also without talking about discipline, because the two go hand in hand, right? Belief is a manifestation of, or I should say, the work of your hand is a manifestation of your belief. So if you actually want to prove that you believe something, let me see your works. Let me see what you've done. Let me see what you put your hand to. And this is what is elaborated about in the book of James, when he says faith without what is dead? Works. How do we produce works? With discipline. So I just want to drop that in your Ruach. We have to develop a discipline, even if it's in small things, whether it's the time that you say you're going to wake up every morning, right? The time you say you're going to go to bed every night, the time you say you're actually going to eat specific meals, right? Let alone what you're going to eat in those meals. I'm just simple stuff, right? The time that you say, you know what? I'm going to discipline myself when it comes to scrolling the internet. I'm not going to scroll the internet outside of my employment purposes or outside of the vision, the goal that I have. I'm not going to scroll unless it's just specifically related to exercises for me working out, right? That's you setting a goal and maintaining, saying, you know what, I'm only going to do 15 minutes a day. And I'm telling you, you set the small goal and achieve it after 3-4 days, right? Your confidence starts to build. And you can extend the 15 minutes, right? You can extend the 15 minutes to, 30 minutes, and you can maybe add something different on there that, again, is related to the end goal, the vision, the purpose, the function. Hallelujah. You can do these things once you establish that pattern, because, again, what are you doing? You are architecting your paradigm. And eventually you take that away. You take it away from, okay, just internet stuff to, okay, let's workout routine. Twice a week, this is start small. Twice a week, I'm getting in that gym no matter what. You know what I'm saying? These are the time parameters. Ideally, I would like to do it. But you know what? I know, certain circumstances, I might not be able to get a ride there. I might not be able to drive there. But I'm going to set this that no matter what, these 2 days out the week, I'm doing this. And I'm telling you, you get consistent with it. It begins to develop a pattern in your mind. That's architecture. And when you choose not, or I don't say when you choose not to do it, but when you don't do it, which, yeah, technically, I guess that is a choice. When you choose not to do it, you feel a difference. The pattern is like, dang, something is missing here. Something is missing. Something is off. Why? Because, again, the architecture that's being built within you. That's ours. We got to start turning our head to the vision, to the mission, to the goal. We got to stop making excuses and just get it done. Right? So I just wanted to put that in your Ruach. Love you all. Shalom.